sparked a movement around the world, and Keith Ellison is the man who fought to bring justice to the family of George Floyd, and really to the whole movement as the eyes of the world were watching what was happening in his state, in his city. Former congressman, he's the current Attorney General for the state of Minnesota. Keith Ellison, from right here in Detroit. First of all, round of applause. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you for coming in, and appreciate you for writing a book like this.
Yeah.
Because I read things in there that I did not know about the trial, very insightful. But let's back it up a little bit and give people a little background. Tell us where you're from. You want to go elementary, you go to high school, any of that stuff. Break it down.
I went to Hampton Elementary.
All right. All right.
I went to Immaculate Heart of Mary School.
There you go.
I went to U of D High School.
Went to U of D, okay.
On 7 Mile Road, and I went to Wayne State University.
There it is. There it is.
So I got a pedigree, man, you know.
Yeah.
Here in Minnesota, right here in Michigan, excuse me. And Michigan is where I was born, where I was raised. Detroit, you know, my dad's from here. My mom moved here from the Deep South.
Yeah.
And so I'm all about Faygo Pop, Better Made chips.
There you go.
You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
Coney Island.
Sir.
You know what I mean? All that stuff. You know.
So let's talk about this, because first of all, what made you want to write a book that encompasses so much? And it's truly about breaking, you call it break the wheel,
right.
But it's about police reform.
It is. And so the reason I wrote a book about it is because right after we concluded the case and we obtained those convictions against the people who murdered George Floyd, we started getting calls, and county attorneys, prosecutors from around the country were like, what do you think about this witness? What kind of medicals do you need to witness do we put on? Do you have a police officer expert? Can these cases be done? What kind of political blowback did you get by doing this?
Yeah.
People wanted to know how do you preserve the dignity and the reputation of the victim? Because typically after some person of color gets killed by the police, next thing you know, there's a bunch of stuff about what a bad person they are.
Wow.
And so that's the kind of questions I was getting.
Keith, your job is so intense as it is.
Yeah.
And all those questions had a little to do with your job, but they had a lot to do with what's happening in our country. What was it like when you got that call, reading the book, 4:45 a.m. in the morning, waking up, trying not to wake up your wife, but it's George Floyd had just died?
Well, I'm an early riser, so it wasn't that hard for me. I mean, I might start yawning by 5, but at 5 in the morning, I'm pretty much up. And so when I saw the video, I was shocked. I was not shocked. I couldn't stop looking at it.
You had the same feeling a lot of us did.
Right. Because on the one hand, this is not a new problem, which is one of the reasons I wrote the book. But still, to see that inhumanity play out on the streets is still so shocking that I just kept looking at it, and then I looked at it again and again. And when I looked at it the subsequent times, I was counting the number of times he asked to breathe, counting the number of times he asked for his mother. And then I noticed that he stopped talking, and the crowd started shouting, get off of him, get off of him. So, there's something I'll never forget. And that morning, I knew that we had to play some kind of a role, but I didn't know I'd end up being the lead prosecutor at that point.
One of the questions that someone posed to you, I was going to pose to you, after you do something like this, do you think about the blowback to career? Do you think about you were a congressman, now you're the Attorney General, you still want to serve your constituents?
Sure.
How do you encompass that and still be able to help, in general, help the public, help the people, help African Americans, and also, how do you gauge that with, I have a career?
Well, here's the thing. In my last election, I had to win. I absolutely did, not for my own sake, but because I didn't want one prosecutor in America to think I can do justice and the right thing, or I can keep my job.
There it is. That's the truth, man.
I don't want any prosecutor to wonder that. I want prosecutors to be like, you know what? Here's this person violated the law. We're going to hold them accountable. That's what we want out of a prosecutor. But I did have a lot of blowback in my last election. I did have folks spend massive amounts of money. They were like, we don't care how guilty Derek Chauvin is. You don't prosecute a police officer, period. And they spent money to try to make their point. But we won anyway because most most Minnesotans, most Americans, certainly most people in Michigan and Detroit want equal justice under the law.
All right.
So that's what we fought for.
Man, I could talk to you for the whole hour, but I know you got to go. My last question, when people pick up this book or when people finish it and put it down,
right,
what do you want them to walk away with?
I want people to believe, one, we can fix the problem of generational cyclical violence by public officials.
We can fix it?
I absolutely am certain we can. We've seen some cities already like Newark and Camden, New Jersey, who have made amazing strides. I think in the year 2020, 2021, Newark, New Jersey, which used to be under federal consent decree, had no officer-involved shootings.
What?
Right.
Newark?
Newark.
I got cousins up that way.
Well, you know,
Trenton way. I know what Newark's like.
Well, check in recently.
Wow.
Because you know they used to have a horrendous reputation. So it can work, but we've got to make sure that our prosecutors, cops, judges, media, and mostly important, our active citizenry says we've got to bring this problem to a close. And I'll tell you a few reasons. One, saving lives. George Floyd's life mattered. But then the city of Minneapolis has spent over $100 million in the last 10 years on police misconduct lawsuits.
Wow.
So I don't know how much Detroit has spent, but like LA has spent a lot, Chicago spent. This is money that could be going to anything else. And then also, it's about democracy.
It is.
And you know, we talk democracy, we say voting. Democracy, we say participating on a jury. But if the state can use violence against you, and there's no recourse, the government, then you don't live in a democratic society. So we're going to be at Church of the New Covenant Baptist.
That's what I was going to say. We got to rush out of here. But Break the Wheel is the book. Church of the New Covenant is where you'll find him Sunday at 3 p.m. And you want to continue this conversation with Keith Ellison. Man, thank you for stopping by.
Thank you,
We appreciate you.
Wonderful.
We're proud of you.
I'm so glad to be home.
Proud of you. We'll be right back.
Oh.